hour that packs a punch. It's Reese on the radio. And don't say we didn't warn you.
All right, ladies, buckle up. It's showtime.
All right, what's going on, all you scallywags and nutmakers across the fruited plain? It's Reese on the radio on NewsTalk 1080 WTIC. It's the Reese on the radio rundown, the weekend edition, pretty much where I opine about the events of the week, what's going on over the weekend. Maybe we'll prognosticate for the week coming up. We'll get into all of that. Of course, don't forget, always download the Odyssey app and always go to ReeseOnTheRadio.com. That's REESE on the radio.com. You can check out this program live whenever you like. Share it with your friends. Tell them about the show. We're going to try to make this show bigger and better than it's ever been before in 2025. So we're almost there. We're less than 24 hours away from inauguration. Even though it's going to be inside due to the bitter cold. But nonetheless, it's still going to be, I think there's going to be a pageantry and an electrified sort of atmosphere nonetheless. Because I think what's going on is an opportunity to get down to business. You know, I think a big deal of what goes on in Washington is how much it celebrates itself. And enough is enough of that, don't you think? Now we get down to the soup and the nuts, you know? It's like we get down to the bare bones of the business as usual, the people's business, as it were. And I'm excited for that. I mean, I'm going to watch it. I'll, be watching every moment of it as it transpires. I'll, of course, be ready for you. And don't forget, check us out at 2 p.m. We'll be here an hour early to do that. I also have to give my Reese on the radio, or Dr. Reese on the radio's I Have a Dream speech, because we can't play the Dr. Martin Luther King speech because his family will sue for it. And I'm miffed by that. I'm absolutely miffed by that. But I don't want to get in that here. I'll get into that a little bit later. Because and I'm not going to get into it. I promised myself that I wouldn't. Okay, so just so we can get to where we are here, we have Joe Biden leaving. We have Joe Biden going to Rehoboth Beach, probably to spend his, I don't know. I hate to say his last days. I'm not trying to be cruel. But yeah, maybe they will allow him to relax. And I wouldn't be stunned. I would not be surprised. I know a lot of people will pretend to be, but I wouldn't be surprised that once Joe Biden is off the main stage, that quietly he deteriorates mentally than physically. Because there's a part of me, and this is going to sound messed up, but you take it as you will, because I think I'm being honest here. It was 2022, I'm almost certain of it, where I made it very clear that what I thought was happening to Joe Biden was elder abuse. And we had many people saying that in 2024, finally coming around. 2 years late, everybody. I was saying it as late, as early as 2022. I could have probably said it in 2021. But I was clear in that. It was elder abuse. And people poo-pooed it. And now they know. And I think we're going to find out. Maybe. It trickles. It'll come out that they had him on something. They were injecting him with something. He was this, he was that. He was never himself. I think that's what we're going to learn. It'll be the biggest political scandal known to man. that he was just an empty vessel, just standing there, a figurehead president. A guy who ended up taking all the blame, even though he did nothing. And I know people will say, well, can't we just move on? Because I don't know, that's what it'll be about. It's over. Let it go. Remember, they did this with COVID, too. I just had a conversation this weekend with an Uber driver. Oh, goodness gracious. I'll get into that, too. But they want you to move on. And the reason why they want you to move on is because they don't want to be accountable to any. They don't want to have to answer for it. The obvious will come out. And I don't think that once this is over, Joe Biden's going to be around anymore. You know, that's that old line, you won't have me to kick around anymore. They won't. And people will this. This sounds, I'm going to say something else that's going to sound controversial. Look, the only way you save that man's legacy is with him passing away. Much like Jimmy Carter's. You saw the glowing things that were said about Jimmy Carter, even though never once were people screaming and hollering about Jimmy Carter when he came into a room. No one was saying, look at him, statesman. No one did any of that. They were like, oh, look, there's Jimmy Carter. It was when he passed away that immediately people started inventing the statementship, the lore, the legend of Jimmy Carter. They literally just started inventing it on the fly. That's the only way you're going to salvage Joe Biden. It's one of those things worth more dead than alive. I'm not wishing it on him, but truth be told, Hunter will get a reprieve. Oh, he misses his dad. Jill will no longer be seen as some sort of evil witch. Oh, the mourning wife. That I'm telling you, that's the way that stuff's going to look. And I know, I don't care if you think it's insensitive. I'm not even being insensitive for insensitive sake. I'm not even trying to be cruel because I don't like Joe Biden, because I don't like his administration, or that I don't like what his administration did to this country for 4 years, what it did to Donald Trump, what it put us through for 4 years. It has nothing to do with that. I'm just stating the basic facts. The basic facts are, in order for Joe Biden to have any legacy worth talking about, to have any legacy where he looks somewhat presidential, he'd have to pass away. Worth more dead than alive. But that's, again, he's got no one to blame but himself. No one. The history books will be kinder to him after his passing. Now, if he lives for another, 10 years? Sorry. If he lives for another 10 years, everything about his administration keeps coming out, drip, 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 drip. It makes him look worse. Look, if you ask me, if Joe Biden sticks around for another 2 years, there's a potential that Joe Biden would look more corrupt than Richard Nixon. I really believe that. I really do believe, and many of you do too. Don't pretend. That's what we're going to find out. Anyway, I got to talk about the inauguration, what I'm predicting in the inauguration. I can't say I'm predicting that. Well, I'm not predicting. What I think the inauguration is going to be like, people are going to have to scramble to make this look bigger or broader or more interesting than it is, because with it being inside the rotunda, there's really not much you can do with that. There's no outdoors. There's not, fans all over the place. You do what you can. If we're lucky, maybe we'll talk to some people at the Capital One Arena. Maybe they'll do some stuff like that, but I don't know. We'll find out. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back. More news, more views. It's Reese on the radio on NewsTalk 1080 WTIC.
Catch Reese on the radio. Reese on the radio. Only on WTIC News Talk 1080.
I ain't going to lie. I'm getting a little sick and tired of being right. I'm sorry. Reese on the radio, NewsTalk 1080 WTIC. I am. I'm getting awfully tired of being right. Not that other people didn't have it, but I had it mad early. This Joe Biden thing, even though he's about to walk out, is going to... listen, this story is going nowhere. In the next year, there's going to be so much stuff coming out about Joe Biden and his cognitive decline and the shadow government that ran his administration. That's what we are about to learn. And, look, I know the Wall Street Journal did this article a little while ago. I know the New York Times is trying to do this drip campaign. Like, for some odd reason, they think they're going to wait it out until finally, right around Pulitzer time, they'll write the article that's going to expose it all. See, we were on top of it. Knock it off. What we're going to learn is going to be horrible. In fact, I can say in the future, in the very near future, there are going to be people who are going to be found guilty of espionage. It might be treason. Just don't take my word for it. I want you to hear Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. He's talking to Barry Weiss, former New York Times writer, has her own outfit now called the Free Press. I want you to hear Mike Johnson explain it himself.
But January a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, I had been asked, I became Speaker in October 2023, and there were all sorts of big national security concerns and everything going on, and I started requesting a meeting with the president because, I'm kind of old school. I'm a constitutional law guy. Speaker of the House should be able to talk to the president, especially in times of great national interest and calamity. But they wouldn't let me meet with him, and his staff kept giving me excuses. This went on for like 8 or 9 weeks. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't have time. What are you talking about? I'm second in line of the presidency. He has time. I need to talk to him. We had, I can't say the classified parts, but we had some big national concerns at the time that I was losing sleep over. Finally, I just went to the Hill Press Corps and I said, the president is not being allowed to meet with the speaker. There's a problem. So they started putting pressure on him. Long story short, they finally relented. They invited me to the White House. I show up and I realize it's actually an ambush because it's not just me and the president. It's also Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem, the CIA director, everybody. And then, so I walked in the Oval and, I know what this is. They're going to hotbox the speaker on Ukraine funding. That's what it was. This is probably third week of January. We sit down, we're in the midst of it, and the whole conversation, and I'm going, we don't need to have this conversation. The president reaches over just like this. We're sitting right next to the fireplace in the Oval, and he grabs my arm and he says, the speaker and I just need a couple minutes together. Would y'all just leave us alone? And I looked up on the faces of some of the staff standing around the wall, and they're like, oh, no, he did it. So he called it. He's the commander-in-chief. So everybody leaves, and he and I are standing awkwardly in the middle of the Oval Office, right over the rug by that coffee table. And I said, Mr. President, thanks for the moments. This is very important. I got some big national security things I need to talk to you about that I've heard, and I think you know, and what do we do? But first, real quickly, Mr. President, can I ask you a question? I cannot answer this from my constituents in Louisiana. Sir, why did you pause LNG exports to Europe? Like, I don't understand, liquefied natural gas is in great demand by our allies. Why would you do that? Because you understand, we just talked about Ukraine. You understand you're fueling Vladimir Putin's war machine because they got to get their gas from him, And he looks at me stunned with this, and he said, I didn't do that. And I said, Mr. President, yes, you did. It was an executive order, 3 weeks ago. And he goes, no, I didn't do that. And he's arguing with me. I said, Mr. President, respectfully, could I go out here and ask your secretary to print it out? We'll read it together. You definitely did that. And he goes, oh, you talk about natural gas. Yes, sir. He said, no, you misunderstand. He said, what I did is I signed this thing we're gonna conduct a study on the effects of LNG. I said, no, you're not, sir. You paused it. I know. I have the export terminals in my state. I talked to those people this morning. This is doing massive damage to our economy, national security. It occurred to me, Barry, he was not lying to me. He genuinely did not know what he had signed. And I walked out of that meeting with fear and loathing because I thought, we're in serious trouble. Who is running the country? I don't know who put the paper in front of him, but he didn't know.
Tell me that's not, tell me that isn't criminal. Someone is writing executive orders, telling the president, sign this, please. It's for this, when it's for something completely different. Who in this administration was pointing to every department and going, Hey, what do you need? We'll get the president to sign it. Hey, what do you need, Lloyd Austin? And just anyone who's hey, Chuck Schumer, what executive order do you want him to sign today? Don't worry about it. He won't. We'll tell him what it is. We'll tell him whatever it is we want him to think it is. He'll sign it. He'll never read it. And I know that there's some people are going to hear this and it's like, oh, but Reese, you're giving the president a break. Not really. But I think in some instances you do. This was elder abuse in so many ways. We're talking far more criminal. For this president to say, no, that wasn't what I signed. No, sir, that you did sign this. How is that not criminal? I mean, on so many levels that you could do that. Just giving out goodies. And who do you think was at the head of that? Was that Ron Klain? Was that Anthony Blinken? Was it Jake Sullivan? Who exactly was in the Oval Office? I mean, if you hear Mike Johnson tell this, when he walked into the office, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffrey, Nancy Pelosi, people are standing there, in essence, standing guard, trying to protect the president, which almost seems like, dare we say, was Nancy Pelosi running the White House? Was Chuck Schumer running the White House? How is that not true at this point? And I know we're going to get more stories about this. See, this is the part that I want people to understand. Forget about the book deals at this point. Right? People are talking about, hey, what do you think Kamala Harris is going to do? Oh, she'll get a big book deal if she reveals the secrets. She ain't revealing this. She can't reveal this. She'll be putting lives in jeopardy. If she writes a book and she knows anything, the juicy of the juicy would be the president signing executive orders, the president implementing this or that he had nothing to do with. There were other operatives inside the White House who were crafting the president's agenda is not his own. That's what we would learn. That's the only scandal. It's not about whether or not Joe Biden's cognitive decline started here or there. I mean, if it's a part of anything, all we learn from that is who is running the country at that time. If it turns out in 2021, in very early 2021, Joe Biden couldn't handle the rigor of being president of the United States, it means from the beginning of his presidency until it ended, he had nothing to do with what the White House was doing. Any of its policies, all of the speech writing, all of the things that he was running around telling people, that was all crafted, all stagecraft. And the entire White House was in on it. And the news media, I don't know whether or not they're complicit. I don't know whether or not they're in the dark. They were playing the whole emperor has new clothes nonsense, but someone has got to pay for this. I mean, I got to start looking up, like, what is there a criminal statute? Is this espionage? Is this treason? Like, there has to be something here. Something here. This story, it can only be the tip of the iceberg. That was in what Mike Johnson is talking about here was January of 2024. That means this entire year, Joe Biden may have been signing bills, signing things, signing legislation, whatever the case may have been. He may not have known one thing he was signing. And someone in that office was telling him, no, this is for this, while it's really for that. If there's anything to find out, if there's anything to hash out, that's what it's going to be. And I already knew when that Lloyd Austin story came out, that he didn't contact the president of the United States, that he was going into the hospital and he was going to have a self-induced coma. When we found out that he never contacted the president, and more importantly, the president never sought out Lloyd Austin. Never once said, hey, the big black guy who runs defense, where's he at? I haven't seen him in a while. Joe Biden didn't even care to ask. Did he even know? Did they keep that from him? I believe they did. I know they did now. I used to remember when Barack Obama used to say when certain scandals broke, I learned about it at the same time you did. I wrote it in the paper. I read it in the paper. Joe Biden didn't know what was going on. I put any amount of money at Joe Biden didn't have an idea what was going on. I really do believe it. We'll get to the bottom of it. Some whistleblower's got to come forward. If he gets the book deal, That guy's going to get, forget about it. A fortune. A fortune. Let's take a break. We'll be back. More news, more views when we return. It's Reese on the Radio. All right, we're back. Reese on the Radio, NewsTalk 1080 WTIC. And I guess, Inauguration Day, Inauguration Weekend, you can call it that. A lot of stuff going on right now. I think right about now, my friends Dave and Apple should be on their way to one of the pre-inauguration balls. They're going to be calling me about it, of course. And they'll be calling the show on Monday for our inauguration special as well. Dave and Apple are starting a new podcast called Prepare to Unfriend, which I'm really excited about for them. I kind of inspired them, they say. So I'm glad that they're doing it now. Everybody's doing podcasts today. I think what we can take as we sit on the last day of the Biden administration, regardless of all of the nonsense that we went through, I think that there is a moment to somewhat preemptively celebrate. And what I think we should celebrate is common sense to some degree coming back in style. I'm not hopeful that it will stay that way, because there has to be this repudiation of the nonsense every day, and we have to make sure that they look silly. It's not enough to laugh at the nonsense. It must be exposed as. You understand? Like, this is the way from now on we get our point across. It's got to be mocking and ridiculing the ridiculous. We have got to always point out, and we've got to have our facts straight. We have got to point out to these people what they have done and why what they're doing is wrong, ridiculous, short-sighted, whatever the case may be. When we do that, a lot of people say, many people may look at it as bullying, Reese. Many people may look at it as being cruel and unusual. No. No, I'm not suggesting you be mean-spirited. No, we have to point out why it is silly, and we need to laugh at them when they do these ridiculous things, because that's how they respond. They don't respond. See, if you're mean to them, like calling them stupid is a form of bullying, and that's always rejected. I get that. But you have to laugh at how ridiculous they are. You see, that is the shame that they need. Shame works with them. That's why they're so anti-shame. You must shame their dumb ideas and get others to recognize how silly it is, because no one wants to be a part of a campaign that makes them look silly. They don't want to touch it. That kind of stuff. See, if you don't do it, it's parasitic, right? If you don't mock it and other people are made to feel or think that behavior or that way of thinking is acceptable, they'll join in a heartbeat. So when you see someone bringing it up, saying, no, there are more than two genders, you just simply laugh. Oh, poor baby, you're so stupid. Baby, that's sad. I like this one line that someone says, is that if gender is a construct and it doesn't matter what kind of genitalia you have, why should we be lobbing it off with surgery? And again, you have to point out the absurd. And just keep needling them about that. Make them think. They'll eventually get it. Sooner or later, the Q-tip will stop going through the ear. That's what you got to do. There isn't. Look, part of the reason why and I've tried, but the part of the reason why these people will never, ever come on this show, the reason why they will never meet me in a dark alley to hash it out is because they know their ideas are silly and dumb and they can't defend them because they don't want to defend them. They know when they listen, oh, nope, can't mess with him. They're looking for the weak and feeble. They're looking for the mind-numb robots that they can influence with this nonsense. They don't want to talk to people who have logic, who use reason, and can deduce. They don't want anything to do with those folks. But when you start to see them, when you see them starting to, gravitate towards individuals who don't know any better, you better be there. You better be there to go, oh, you're so dumb. Look at you. You're a pretty little stupid head. Make them look foolish. I say all this because I'm watching this stuff going on in California with Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom. People are starting to realize that everything those folks ever said and all the stuff they're saying now isn't worth a hill of beans because people lost actual things, their lives and livelihood. What they thought were their lives, at least. Their homes, the place where they dwell, they go to sleep at night. That's at the core of all of us. Knowing one day I had a home and the next day I didn't, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. But then you find out that there was something that someone could have done to stop it, or at least mitigate it to some degree, that maybe your house would have been saved. Maybe your livelihood would have been saved. Maybe your belongings or your heirlooms or your very treasured belongings could have been saved. And you listen to these people blame anyone and everyone but themselves without an ounce of accountability. And all you have to do is listen to them and just mock them. Just start telling them how silly they look. Start pointing out the promises that they made and did not keep. Karen Bass, never going to leave the country, left 5 times. Keep poking at everyone and let them know that woman lied to you. That woman deceived you. That woman said she'd never leave your side, and she did. And she left you at the most crucial time. Everything that they told you was the most important thing in your life, diversity, equity, and inclusion. You got it. You got the people you thought needed to have the positions that they did, but what did it get you? Nothing. It got your entire livelihood snatched from you. It turns out that all of that stuff meant nothing when you needed competence. It meant nothing. It's over now. And what are you going to do? You have to start from scratch. And what are you going to do when you start from scratch? Are you going to means test everything that you do, or are you going to make sure that you have equity and inclusion involved in it? How are you going to go about your life and rebuild? Are you going to be socially conscious? Are you going to be politically correct? You're going to do what needs to be done, aren't you? All of that stuff, all of that nonsense that you were playing around with, patting yourself on the back that you were doing, all of that stuff is going to go out the window now, because now you need to do exactly what needs to be done to take care of your family. And none of that social stuff will even play a role. And then you start to realize that it was all silly and it meant nothing and it was worth nothing. That's the way that you're going to have to live your life from now on, in reality. So there's something that you can look forward to today. You can look forward to it today and for the next, 4, maybe 8 years. At least now, somebody's going to be telling you the truth. Someone's going to be honest with you. Oh, I'm not talking about the president. I'm talking about the rest of us. The rest of us who live in the real world. We're no longer going to play your games because we don't have to anymore. A decision has been made. No more of the nonsense. You either join us here in reality or you can continue to live in Never Never Land. And I call it Never Never Land because never, ever does anything happen that's real. We'll take a break. We'll be back. More news, more views when we return. It's Reese on the Radio on NewsTalk 1080 WTIC.
Reese on the Radio.
There must be some mistake. You're black?
Annoying since 1969.
All right, let's wrap this puppy up. It's Reese on the Radio, NewsTalk 1080 WTIC. Just before we get up out of here, I think we have a rebroadcast of the show as well. But don't forget, you can always go to reeseontheradio.com. That's REESE on the radio.com. And you can listen to the show whenever you want to. Download the Odyssey app. On Monday, we'll be on at 2 p.m. for a special inauguration. Reese on the Radio. So about 4 hours of all the news and all the views. So get ready for that. That's going to be fun. I'm going to give my Dr. Reese on the Radio speech because we can't do the I Have a Dream speech for Martin Luther King's birthday because apparently that's copywritten and the family will either sue you or they ask for compensation. I'll talk about that on Monday too. I'm very disappointed at hearing that. And my entire radio career, at least from what I've known, people have always aired it, but now even CBS has been sued by the Martin Luther King Jr. family for airing the I Have a Dream speech, which, anyway, it just baffles my mind. I don't want to get into it now. I'll talk about that a lot on Monday. It talks about, for me, it just says where the whole civil rights movement has gone or where the state it is today. But anyway, we'll get into that in my speech on Monday. Of course, we'll be capturing any moments that are worth talking about. I know that there'll be that repetition. I promise you, I do not do repetition. If I've got to play audio and video of stuff that everyone else has played, I promise you I'll make it more entertaining than you've ever heard it the first time. So that's going to be fun to talk about those things, or just to at least sort of relive, if not watch them live with us. So we'll have our TVs on, and we'll communicate about that. And of course, we'll take your phone calls at 860-522-WTIC, 860-522-9842. I've got to promote the airing of grievance hotline at 202-735-1288. Again, the airing of grievance hotline is 202-735-1288. Give that a call if you can't air your grievance live. And we'll air it on Friday's show. I don't think there's anything else I need to promote. Oh, Stupidest Thing. Stupidest Thing is at 4 o'clock, as usual, Monday through Friday. I try to make sure that I don't miss a day. I've missed a few, not a lot. I probably miss like once, maybe one a month I'll miss. But I try to make sure that I'm on top of the stupidest thing I read today. Because it's so easy to get a stupid story. And you guys enjoy that. At least so many people have told me that they do. And you can watch the show on reeseontheradio.com or check out all of those as well. This show, you can check out all the back shows as well, going to reeseontheradio.com. Okay, enough promoting. So here we are. New day starts on Monday. And it's going to be a lot of stuff. But one of the things that I'm going to try to do during the new administration is try to communicate with the education department. I don't think I'll be talking about anything more than the education system in this country and in Hartford, Connecticut overall. This scandal with Alicia Ortiz, the girl who can't read or write and graduated with honors, That story is so big to me and such an important story to me. I can't let it go. And I think that if we do, we run the risk of making things worse for children across the country. Now, let me tell you why this is important. So I'm in my Uber because my wife has the car, and as you all know, she was tending to her very ill grandmother, who's, in essence on her deathbed, who passed away on Sunday morning. And Saturday morning. And I went out to go get our usual snacks at night, but I knew my wife was going to be coming late, but I wanted to surprise her when she got home, and she had her bottled water and her snacks if she got home, and she was chatting with her family that was coming with her. And anyway, so as I'm with my Uber driver, and we start talking about how long he's been an Uber driver. I ask every Uber driver that question. And I asked him, how long have you been an Uber driver? He says, I've been doing it back, off and on for a year. My regular job is a school teacher, which immediately piqued my interest. And he's a special needs teacher, which I'm running into a lot of now. It's like everywhere you look, every teacher I bumped into or at least had a conversation with is a special ed teacher. So I start talking to the young man. His name is Julian. And I start asking Julian about his role as a special ed teacher and what's that like and everything. And, he's telling me how rough it is and how some of the kids who have some problems, some kids can't read and some kids are, developmentally challenged and, hard to deal with. And I start talking to him about, of course, the story about Alicia Ortiz. And he turns around and he says, I get to the point about the minimum 50 program that we found out about, right? Due to reporting of Mark Fitch at Connecticut Inside Investigator. And Julian says to me, oh, well, our school in Texas, it's minimum 70. And I was like, what? What do you mean minimum 70? Oh, that's it, 70. Whether they pass or, whether they fail or even show up, they have to get a minimum 70. But his reasoning is what blew my mind. Try this on for size. COVID. There has been so much learning loss in his district that instead of actually teaching these kids, they are just funneling them through. Just letting them skate by with a minimum 70. Get them out. And they're just emptying the zone. We're just going to funnel all of these kids through till we get rid of them, and then we'll teach whatever generation we've gotten rid of. The generation after. So they're taking all the learning loss kids and just pushing them through, shoving them, and fend for themselves when they get out of school. That's their program. So when I say this is deep, folks, this is deep, and no one's talking about it. Everybody knows it's there. Everyone's heard of some degree of it, but no one's talking about it. So I don't think I'm going to be able to let this go. I don't think I can let it go until it's addressed. And I'm going to call congressmen. I'm going to call senators. And I'm talking about our two bozos. Dick Blumenthal and Chris Murphy couldn't care less. I'm getting real answers from real people. And if I've got to, I'm going to keep sending letters to the Trump administration. I'm going to see if I can get some word to Linda McMahon. Something's got to be said and something's got to be done. I think that Linda McMahon, if we can get her, I want her to make a spectacle of her home state. That's what I want to do. And if we can do that, forget about it. We're talking sky's the limit. Make this a national story. And we can watch these bozos try to fend off the criticism of the Constitution state. The criticism of this state that says, equity and inclusion is important while they just pass people without getting an education, determined to make their lives way harder than it'll ever be, not giving them a proper education. I mean, this is really, really sickening to me. But anyway, we'll get into all that. I'm not letting up on that. So until Monday, let's get up out of here. I love you guys. As I always say, radio is free, so we thank you for paying attention. Remember to keep JC in your hearts and in your mind. Sean Patrick, we love you and we miss you. Remember that panic is not planning, so plan your work and work your plan. Me, I'm Reese on the radio. You have a good day, pleasant tomorrow. We'll see you back here on Monday, 2 p.m., Inauguration Day. Holler.